Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, depending on whereabouts and whenabouts you are watching this. So welcome to this first ever public live stream meditation. Actually, that's not strictly speaking true. I have done this before live to the public as a sort of a pilot run last year, but this is the first one that I've advertised. Excuse me. So those of you that are subscribed to the inner circle, the Wuxi meditation inner circle, will already realise that I like to start these things off with a little bit of a chat. And it's usually related to just kind of what's going on for me at any particular point in time. And today is going to be no exception to that rule. So the thing that springs to mind is guilt, actually. There's a lot more to this subject than just guilt, and hopefully we'll sort of we'll conclude with some useful points about how guilt relates to all sorts of other stuff that goes on that creates problems with trying to meditate. So guilt comes from having a conscience, having ethics or morals, doesn't it? And also being human. Being human, we make errors occasionally from time to time. And actually when those errors happen is when we're probably not thinking about what we're doing at the time. And that tends to happen certainly in the West a lot these days. And the thing is, we tend to be caught up in our thinking a lot of the time. And I think one of the issues with that is because if you're at school, if you're in university or college, or even at work, you spend a good portion of your time doing higher level cognitive thinking, which is really good. It lights up and exercises the majority of your brain, which is really good for you. But when you've been doing it for a long time, let's say for 8 hours, it's a bit like a flywheel. It doesn't just stop. And a lot of the time, if you decide that you want to stop, you want it to stop. You want to rest now. You want your mind to just stop for a bit or calm down for a bit. That's hard. But what's even harder is the fact that when you're doing that, when you're doing this thinking, you don't even realise you're doing it. You're kind of so caught up in it, you haven't noticed that it's happening. Until you say something or you do something which hurts somebody or makes you look a fool or something like that, and all of a sudden, donk, you notice, hey, I've just done something, I've just behaved in a way which is not me, which is not representative of what's important to me, of my values. And then you get guilt, don't you? Yeah, that's when you suddenly, in the extreme, you kind of hate yourself, perhaps. At the very least, you become very angry with yourself. So you kind of get like actually a roller coaster of emotions: guilt, then anger, then sadness, and all those things maybe mixed up together in between. And you're still thinking, yeah, and you keep thinking, and you're thinking about the sadness, or you're thinking about the guilt, you're thinking about the anger, which makes even more emotions, and the roller coaster carries on. And actually, you haven't really made use of these emotions appropriately. They're there for I'm going to say they're for a reason. We all know that, but we can really make use of these emotions if we can come out of the thinking, if we can fall out of that thinking. if you fall out of your thinking when you feel the guilt, then you can turn that guilt into a power for good. So for me this morning it happened, just a small thing, but nevertheless goes against my values. My little boy, he's only 5, got all excited this morning because they're doing something fun at school today, and he bumped into the toilet roll holder, banged his elbow, and I snapped because he's done that many times, and so I didn't shout a lot, but I just raised my voice momentarily, and then realised that isn't the response that I want to give. That isn't going to be helpful for him. What would be helpful for him would actually to be giving him a cuddle and saying, "Oh dear, that's really hurt, hasn't it?" And giving it a rub and telling him that you love him, and also then sort of just weaving into that. Perhaps you're going to think about either not going close to the toilet roll holder or trying to keep yourself down a little bit from getting too excited, which is going to be much more effective than shouting. Shouting doesn't work, it just creates problems for the child, certainly when they get older. So, bonk, guilt. And it happened because I was up here thinking about other stuff, rather than thinking about or paying attention to what's happening at that moment. So this can be like a segue into talking about mindfulness, but for me, I think mindfulness is useful, but it's just a small part of a big thing that you need to embrace and practice, and to just filter out the mindfulness part kind of is a bit like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And the reason for this is a big part of falling out of your thinking is your body. There's it's a two-edged sword, if you like. There's two sides to this. There's your mind and there's your body, and the two need to be together. It sounds kind of corny, I suppose, or corny to go all mind body, but that's the thing. These two things are the same, and they need to become the same rather than separated, rather than being dualistic. Now we can get all philosophical about that and go and talk about it at great length, and certainly I studied that at great length and never really had any idea on how to practically do something to make that change. And actually the way in which you make that change is by not thinking about it and by doing something else, something very useful. That is exercise, physical exercise, very specific physical exercises. So in a moment I'm going to get us to do quite a simple exercise, really to learn very, very extremely useful exercises you need to actually study in person with a teacher, qualified teacher who knows what they're doing and knows how to take you through these things safely. Doing it by video means that I can't see you. I can't see what you're doing and what you're not doing, and I can't see how you are. So depending on how you are, every single individual in the world is different, and the teacher needs to see your uniqueness, see what's there for you, so that they can take you through an exercise in a way which is going to help you. It's going to change your body in the right way. So just doing a generic exercise will miss those important points. So we're going to do a very simple one which won't miss those important points. However, it still comes with a health warning. This exercise I don't recommend you do if you are heavily pregnant or if you have serious illnesses in the lower abdominal area. I could give you a list of examples, but I don't want to. I just want to keep it that general. If you have anything that you consider to be a serious illness in the abdominal area, please refrain from doing the physical exercise that we're about we're about to do. Okay. I think that's probably as much hot air as I want to give in such a short video. So let's now do some exercise. So I'm going to go over to the back of the room there where I've got a bit more space. Recommend you find a good space where you can do some exercise but also see what's going on. I'm also going to change cameras, so just bear with me for a moment. Switch over to that camera and also move my microphone so you can still hear me. So this exercise that we're going to do is part of the Tai Chi Qigong system. It's called the closing or the end closing Dao Yin. And we start, so you can't see my feet. So just pretend that you can, and pretend that you can see my feet being parallel and shoulder width apart or hip width apart. Yeah, so you don't want your feet to be really wide apart. You don't want them to be right next to each other. There needs to be a gap. Generally, actually, it works out to about the length of one of your feet between them. And they do need to be parallel. So do check that, have a look down, and if your toes look like they're turning out, please turn them in more. Yeah, because what this is going to do is it's going to relax the muscles in this part of the back. It's going to open up this part of the back and let the spine open. This is something that's really important. This is something that we want to do. And it's the reason why I spent 10 years trying to meditate and failing miserably. It's because a lot of the texts out there either completely ignore or don't emphasize enough the importance of getting your body right. And so it wasn't until I discovered Dr. Shen's work that I realized the importance of this and appreciated it. Going to a session with Dr. Shen is like turning on a switch. And we spent a lot of time doing physical exercise, and the impact of that was massive. So I had a really effective meditation as a result. Hopefully you're going to get an effective meditation as a result of doing this. Okay, so we want to create a strong structure in our feet. So bringing the weight into the balls of the feet, and then using that as an anchor point to stretch the toes forwards and then placing them down on the ground, and then making sure that the heel and around the outside edge of the foot is also securely on the ground. But the weight remains centered about the balls of the feet. Once you've got that, you can then just soften the ankles. Just try to relax the muscles around the ankles, around the knees and around the hips. Bring the pelvis back. So just bring the bum back so that the weight momentarily comes out of the balls of the feet and goes into the heels, and then lean forwards from the hips or out of the hips to bring the weight back in. So you feel as if you're sticking your bum out a little bit, and probably you are, but don't worry, hopefully nobody's watching. It doesn't matter what you look like, what matters is the beneficial effect that you're getting from this. And then stretch the spine. Just use the muscles of the spine to stretch up the back of the spine, to lift the head up, but also stretching up from the chest, the front of the spine as well, which will tend to bring the head back. It'll also tend to lift the chest up, so once you've got the head back, just try to soften the flesh of your chest so that it kind of dribbles down towards the belly. Let the arms relax for a moment, and then we're going to try and stretch just a little bit. So it's just a gentle stretch to make the fingertips move, I don't know, 0.5 centimetre towards the floor, further than they were before. Rotate the arms and the shoulder joints so that the palms are facing forwards, and then breathing in, lifting up the pelvic floor gently, and lifting the arms up. Now this lifting of the arms up is not lifting the shoulders up. You're actually going to stretch the shoulders out sideways. Stretch the shoulders out sideways to open the chest cavity. Yeah, so by opening the lower spine, we've opened the abdominal cavity. By stretching the arms sideways, we've opened the chest cavity. And then, at the end of your next inhale, hold the breath, bend at the elbows to form an apex between your fingers, just above the top of the head. And then on the out breath, a nice gentle out breath, keeping the pelvic floor lifted up, and a gentle push down through the hands, but also a push up through the top of the head. So you're still stretching the spine, but you've got a stretch coming right the way through to the palms of the hands and pushing into the ground. It's quite useful actually to put your mind in the ground, if that means anything to you. Basically just imagine that you are in the ground, on the floor. And then we're just going to repeat that. So again, breathing in, lifting up the pelvic floor, stretching open the chest cavity by moving the shoulders sideways, right the way through to the tips of the fingers, keeping that stretch in the arms, making the apex, and then sending down. All the time, co-timed with your breath. Now, if you find that your breath, you can't breathe this slowly, there's two responses to that. One is to speed up your physical movements to be in time with the breath. But better still, you can cheat with the breath, yeah? So if, let's say you're breathing out here, and you get to about there and you're fully breathed out, but you still need to be breathing out a bit, then just breathe in a little bit and then carry on breathing out. And eventually you sort of get used to it and the breath is able to slow down. So for dealing with anxiety, it's scientifically known or proven that deep breathing will help you relax. It'll take away a degree of that anxiety depending on how anxious you are. So the same effect happens in this exercise because we're doing this slow, deep breathing and co-timing it with physical movements, both external and more importantly internal. Breathing in, stretching out sideways, holding it as you bend the elbows, breathing out, keeping the spine stretched, sending down through the hands, mind in the ground. Change, breathing in, let the mind go up the front of the spine and out the hands. And then sending it down. Switch it straight into the ground. Or alternatively, this is quite a useful one, again breathing in and just putting the mind in the centre of the head, keeping the mind in the centre of the head, and then as you send down, just letting the mind trickle down the spine. So the spine's stretching and your mind, your awareness is just moving down and brushing the front of the spine into the belly, through the legs, through the soles of the feet into the ground. And then just switch to your head again as you're breathing in and lifting up. Just keeping the awareness in the centre of the head until you get to here, and then again just letting it trickle down. It's not really being forced down even though you're pushing through the hands right the way down into the ground through the soles of the feet. We'll do that a couple more times. So again, awareness in the centre of the head, breathing in, holding it, and then pushing down, letting the awareness just dribble down the spine. It's going all the way down the spine and then splitting into two and dribbling down the legs. So down the bones of the legs, into the ground. One more go. This time, we're going to let the mind rest in the centre of the belly, whatever that means to you, but it's just in front of the spine, halfway between the navel and the undercarriage. Just let the awareness rest there for a while, and just for a few moments, just let the arms come into a relaxed state, and just pause and just notice what you notice. Chances are it's going to be something physical. You're going to have a feeling, maybe a twinge, or just a sort of a lightness in the body, or something else. All sorts of phenomena can arise from just bringing your focus back into the body. All of that thinking and detail in the body just drops you out of your mind, out of your head. And we've stretched the spine, we've relaxed the legs, and we've connected with the ground. Very useful components or foundations to doing a good meditation practice. Okay, I'm now going to move my microphone back to where it was and switch cameras and come and sit down again. So if you can get yourselves back into a seated position. Now when we do this seated position, let me just switch cameras. When we do this seated position, you need to make sure that your weight is distributed evenly between the sit bone and both of your feet. We do this because you want to try and keep this stretch in the spine. Yeah, and if you don't have any weight in the feet, then you're not really grounded enough to bring the spine up. So if the weight is back and then you try and bring the spine up, what will happen is you'll close the lower part of the back. So we want to keep the weight out of the spine. So we need to bring it into the feet and then just a very, very subtle, gentle force into the ground to create a lift in the spine. Yeah. So a very important basis. The best I've seen in sort of general text that I've looked at, it says it's important that you've got a straight spine. Well, actually, it's not so much about the straightness, it's about the stretch in the spine. So you've got to try and stretch the spine open. This will release blocks, it will release tensions around the spine. Also, getting the chest area open, as we were doing in that exercise, gets rid of this heaviness that we can tend to get in the heart from strong emotions like guilt, anger and sadness. Also around the shoulders. So stretch the shoulders out, yeah? Just elongate the arms for a moment and try to make this stretch come from the centre of the chest through the shoulders. So you want to try and open up underneath the armpits. You also want to stretch across the tops of the shoulders, right the way through to the fingertips. This isn't a vigorous, hard stretch, it's just a gentle opening. And then keeping the shoulders separated, just bring the arms around. So you've still got this stretch, but it's turning into a circular stretch through the arms. Just bringing it round and letting the backs of the palms rest on your thighs, but keeping this nice openness. Now, when you start to meditate, if you focus and spend a lot of mental effort on trying to keep this posture, then the chances are you won't quite make it into the meditation. However, that's better than slumping in the chair and still not making it into the meditation. So at least you're doing something right with the body. And what can happen is you can fall into meditation just by sitting in this posture and letting the mind go quiet. However, if like me, you spend 8 hours a day doing software engineering or pharmaceuticals, or you've got a busy office, or you've been doing hard study, chances are your mind's spinning so much you're not going to be able to just stop it on command. And if you think about stopping your mind, then that's another thing, isn't it, that your mind's thinking about, that it's focusing on. So doing a bit of physical exercise helps to start to bring you down. But if if you've got it bad, like most of us, then you're still going to need to do some more work. This isn't hard work. It's just a change. It's just a change of your thinking. It's taking yourself outside of this box. I can't do a box, but let's say it's an oval box that your mind is stuck in. And you won't get unstuck from that until your mind comes out of it. And the way in which you do that is to just do something else. Something else that I would like us to do follows on really nicely from that exercise. What we're going to do is we're going to move our awareness in our body. So we're going to start by bringing the awareness in to the centre of the head. So I can see myself, but it's not a mirror image, so it does make it a bit difficult for me to work out which hand is which. But you start off with your mind in the centre of your head, with your awareness. What does that mean? You just imagine, if you like, or become a small dot, or a little man, or whatever, and just bring your entirety of your awareness into a single point in the centre of the head. quite tricky to do that without some extra help. Try this. Imagine, not even imagine, no imagine, just touch the tip of your tongue onto the roof of your mouth. Feel the roof of your mouth and taste it with the tip of your tongue. Right, keeping the tongue there, feel what your tongue feels like to the roof of your mouth. Yeah, so you're going to feel, so you just kind of, to begin with, you know, it's a nice smooth sort of, well, whether it's nice I don't know, but smooth, wet, kind of fairly neutral taste to the tongue. And then when you shift to feeling the tongue with the roof of the mouth, you can feel all the little tiny taste buds on the tip of it. It's kind of warm, isn't it? Now what you've done is you've moved your awareness from the tip of your tongue into the roof of your mouth. Keep moving it up. Keep moving it up until it goes into where you think the centre of your brain is. So that's the first bit. You bring your awareness there, and you do that and hold the awareness there when you're breathing in. And then when you're breathing out, you just let the awareness trickle down the front of the spine. To find the front of the spine, the beginning of it is the back of your throat. So you kind of can join at the dots a little bit and just bring the awareness very gently down the front of the spine, at least into the centre of the belly, but ideally through the sacrum, through the hip joints, through the legs and into the ground, so that you're in the ground by the time you reach the end of your out breath. Once you're there, you just flick your awareness back to the head. Start breathing in. And as soon as you're fully inhaled, breathe out and move the awareness down in time with your out breath. Down the front of the spine, through the belly, through the sacral area, through the hip joints, down the legs and into the ground. So that's what you're doing with your mind, with your awareness. You're not trying to stop thinking, you're not trying to change anything. All you're trying to do is to do that. But also with the breath, we can talk in detail about breath, we don't have time. All I'm going to say is that you want to try and keep the lower part of the spine stretched. Yes, it's really important that that remains stretched. And if you're focusing on your breathing and you're not getting it quite right, that can cause again the spine to compress. So we want to try and keep that open. So just use the muscles there and also the sitting position to keep that open. And then the breath will do what it needs to do. Just breathing in, the awareness here, breathing out, moving the awareness down into the ground. Of course, we also are going to need to relax the muscles in the face, particularly the eyelids. So I'm going to talk us through that, and when we're there and when we're doing it, I'm going to switch myself off camera, go back to the blossom picture and just put on some very quiet music, just so that you know that I'm still here, but I will go quiet. And then when it's time to come out, when it's time to stop, I'll fade the music out and then start talking again and bring myself back onto image. Okay, so again, just checking in on your posture, just making sure that you've got that good stretch and the chest is nice and open, and then just allow the eyelids and the face to relax. And then bringing the awareness into the centre of the head, and at the appropriate moment when you're fully inhaled, just letting the awareness trickle down the spine as you breathe out, keeping the pelvic floor lifted up. It's quite important the pelvic floor remains lifted up as you're doing this, all the way down into the ground. And then when you're at the end of your exhale, bringing the awareness back to the centre of the head as you're breathing in. You're going to have to do this at your own time, because obviously we all breathe slightly differently, slightly different rates. And then breathing the awareness down the front of the spine, deep into the sacrum, through the legs into the ground. Awareness in the centre of the head when you're breathing in. Awareness trickling down the spine as you're breathing out. Through the sacrum, down the legs, keeping the pelvic floor lifted up. Okay, so I'm going to go quiet now for a few minutes while we carry on doing this exercise. short one, but before you allow your eyelids to open, just bring your awareness back into the centre of your head, keeping the eyes closed, keeping the eyelids closed, relaxed over the eyes. And notice what you notice. Notice what your eyes can see with your eyelids closed over them. Notice what you're hearing. Notice what you're feeling in your body. Are there any particular parts of your body that are more feely than others? And then just gradually expand your awareness to fill your head. When your awareness, like a bubble growing, I guess, or a balloon inflating, when it reaches the surface of the skin, that's your signal to let the eyelids open. And just let it carry on growing so that it fills the entirety of your body, so that if it's feasible for you, that you can be aware of the surface of the entirety of your skin throughout your whole body. Okay, that was probably a little bit shorter than I'd have liked, but nevertheless enough for you to get a taste of the kind of meditation exercises that we get up to in Wuxi meditation. And certainly this will be enough for you to take away and practice on your own, or with the guidance of this video recorded. So this will still be accessible as a recording at the same place, so you can watch and listen to it as many times as you wish, and practice it, and you will find that you will benefit from doing this. You will begin to fall out of your thinking a lot easier, and also you will start to notice when you're doing it more often. But the first thing, really, the sort of starting point is by just doing this exercise. Not because you want to do that, not because you go, oh, I'm thinking I better do this exercise, but rather just turning it into a regular practice that you do, where you're not trying to achieve anything, you're just doing the practice because you like it. And then ultimately you will start to gain more control over the thinking, over the ignorance, if you like, of your emotions and what they're telling you, so that you can actually act on them and make use of those emotions as the energy you need to actually change, to actually enact the things that are important to you. And then life tends to get a little bit nicer because of that. So I really hope that your life gets a little bit nicer because of this. And I thank you very much for watching and paying attention. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye for now.